It's Wirecast. I have to handhold it really carefully all the time. But anyway, it's good to see you guys, Cosmic, Uncle Bill, and Nick. Nick, you're here, and that's cool because you left me a lot of questions. So, I always, when it comes to these Q&A things, I always felt like they were a little bit pretentious because, come ask me anything and everything and it just, I don't know, it just sounds like it's just a little bit too pretentious. But I realize now that it's not really the reason for these Q&As. It's sort of a way for us to connect, and it's a way for us to kind of hang out together without, there being some kind of a formal thing between us, like a video or a hangout or something like that. So I get it, and so I'm not I'm not quite so afraid of these before. But I consider myself. I mean, I know a lot about astronomy, but I don't know everything about astronomy, and so it's easy for people in positions like this. And Cosmic, you can I'm sure say things about this as well. That that it's easy to get sort of caught up in people thinking you're an expert on everything, and you start thinking, well, maybe I do know everything, and I'll just talk as if I'm an expert on stuff, and that's gotten me to a lot of problems with a lot of science communicators lately, most notably the big famous ones, Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Michio Kaku. I heard that today. I thought it was funny. To talk about, they tend to talk about things they're not really qualified to talk about and make judgments on things they're not really qualified to make judgments on. And so I'm really kind of put off with some of the science communication that I'm seeing now. Ken Kilgore, good. Echo is gone. Getting about a 5-second delay echo. Oh, I see why. Yeah, it was because I had the monitor on. Sorry about that, Cosmic. I'm trying to it was just a quick and dirty setup. I should have did a better sound check. Did you? Is the volume okay? Are you guys hearing me all right? You're a member of the No Expert Club too. That's right, Cosmic. That's definitely true. Now I got to hand it to you, Cosmic. First of all, let me just say it's impressive that you go on every single night and do a live stream. And I had this feeling that if we had met in person, we might actually be colleagues, because you seem to have a lot of the same expertise I do in software engineering and your knowledge of the things that you do know. And when I watch your stream, I can see that you and I are very much kindred spirits, especially with the programming aspect of it, data processing aspect of it. I did not know, for example, that you worked on IRAF, which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I've actually used IRAF, and of course now the Institute was maintaining it for a while. They've stopped. I think IRAF is finally dead. But the guy that I knew, a good friend of mine actually, who passed away from prostate cancer, worked at the Institute. His job was to deal with the IRAF, PIRAF kind of installation at the Institute. So I worked pretty good with him. Good. The volume's good. All right. Sorry about that, guys. So, all right. So, a couple things I want to let you know about. You guys are Patreon patrons. You guys are supporting Deep Astronomy. You deserve to know where we're headed with this. You've probably seen that Space Fan News has been a little bit erratic lately, and that's because I've been working on the video that I just posted today after this hangout. If you want to watch it, I just posted one called "The Earth is an Exoplanet." That's the space doc that I make. These 5 to 10 minute space videos that are the most popular videos on my channel. But they take me a while to produce. And so I got one out today. And as a result of what I didn't do was a lot of Space Fan News. And as I talked to you guys about on Discord yesterday, I've been having a hard time with some of the motivating factors of getting back into Space Fan News, but I need to do it. So that's one of the changes. But I am working hard. And as you also know, I've been picking your brains, Uncle Bill and Cosmic in particular, about what to do with Twitch. I want to do I feel like I have something to offer Twitch, but I just don't know what yet. And you guys have been helping me brainstorm and come up with some ideas on what possible to do, and I'm still mulling those over. But there's been a lot of changes at YouTube that have caused my business model to kind of go tits up, and that's why I'm relying so much more on on Patreon now. Because for reasons I think I've told you all before, if I use a clip from NASA that is in the public domain and is well, it's not in the public domain, but it is usable by anybody who wants to do it for educational purposes. Those clips, I use them, but then so do big corporations like Discovery Channel and other places like that. And because the way YouTube's Content ID system works is, if they see a big corporation like that using the same clip I used, even though it's in the public domain, I get a copyright hit for it, and I lose all monetization. Now that's too bad, because all of my biggest views, on the order of thousands per day, are on these space docks, and they're every single one of the top 20 now of those videos are not making any money for me. So this is important. What you're doing is important to help support deep astronomy. So to response to that, one of the things that I want to set up is my own streaming platform I'm going to set up an Amazon EC2 instance where I can do my own streaming on demand for all of my videos. It's funny though, because I looked it up, and we bitch about YouTube, but do you know that I did a calculation that of all of the minutes that are streamed from my channel on YouTube, which is in the thousands of minutes per month, to stream that on my own and pay for that ability would cost me $1,500 to $1,800 a month on Amazon, using an Amazon streaming service. So what YouTube and Twitch and Facebook all give you for free is actually a pretty good value. You mean you have to put up with their terms of service, but it's expensive to do that on your own. Still, I want to try, which means I want to raise money, which means I'm going to get funding, not just from Patreon patrons, but from people who want to advertise on my Hangouts and also on my videos, which brings me to an idea I had, Cosmic, and then I'm going to get to your questions. I would like, during the Hangouts, you know how I have the little banners at the bottom, talking about the Hangout, and there's the AAS logos on there. Well, I want to put in a scrolling format right up in the upper, maybe in this corner up here of the Hangout, a scrolling set of logos that would alert people to channels that I'm interested in sending people to. So, example, your channel, your Astronomy Daily Live, Chris Reddy's channel. On there as well, Launchpad Astronomy. So, and then this would be a way for me to kind of let people know while the Hangout's going on of other channels that are worth watching, with the idea that once, to see how effective that is, if you guys find that you're getting more viewers, more subscriptions or whatever, then I can actually use that space and start charging companies a little bit of money to put their logo up on it as well in the future. So hopefully it won't be too obtrusive. I'm going to start it in September when we start these other Hangouts. So we'll see how it goes. But it's one idea I had for promoting other channels like yours. So, so that's an idea I have. We'll try it out and see how it goes. EC2 will be expensive. It will. That's what I mean. If I added it up, and not only does Amazon charges you for every little thing, but just the throughput alone, the streaming throughput alone that YouTube gives me for free would cost me $1,500 a month. That doesn't include the, as far as I know anyway, it doesn't include the what do you call it? I don't know. Maybe it does include the network, because it would be stupid to charge you twice. But maybe I have to double check that. But it doesn't include the EC2 instance. It just includes the throughput. So anyway, I'm gonna try and do it. A lot of storage, and you have scalability. That's right. That's why I want to do it. They also have the ability to cache your content, and you only pay for what actually gets streamed. For example, if I put up a 5-minute video on a disk somewhere in a storage bucket, and somebody in Taiwan clicks on it and watches it, but they only watch 1 minute of the 5-minute video, I'm only charged for 1 minute, not the full 5 minutes, which is important. And that's one thing you're kind of glad that Amazon charges for every little thing, because they also don't charge for what you don't use. So in that sense, it's pretty good. And that's also why I want to go with Amazon. I don't think I could set all that up any more cost effectively at my scale anyway, any better. So Uncle Bill, that's one of the strengths of Twitch. Channels support each other with hosting and raids. Yeah, that is true. Groups are stronger than single channels. Nice to see someone try to do it on YouTube. Yeah, who's doing it on? It would be nice. Oh, it would be nice to see someone try. Yeah. Nick Nolgi, one student published a file on Amazon. It became viral, and the guy got a $30K bill. I know. Well, you can set up alerts and have it stop, which is what I would do. But you're right. If I had my videos, which tend to go viral, sometimes, not all of them, on YouTube, I would be really in a world of hurt. But it also is something I'm in control of. So anyway, these are changes I'm trying to make to Deep Astronomy. I want to let you know them because they are affecting the monetization model. Cosmic already knows this, but we are in September. We're going to, on Tuesday, I think it's the 4th, we're going to start a new Telescope Talk Hangout that is based on ground-based astronomy. And that what I think I'm going to do is call it Telescope Talk Pro. And then there's Telescope Talk Amateur, which you guys already know about. I do that with John and Adam and Alex, all from Europe and the UK. And that would be on alternate Tuesdays, I think. So there'll be a pro version and an amateur version. What do you think of that idea? Anyway, right now the pro version is only going to be bi-weekly, and so is the amateur. And I thought, why not just merge them together into some kind of continuity? We'll talk about it online, I'm sure, or over email, I'm sure, but that's where I'm headed with that so far. Okay, so this is a Q&A, and this is a way for us to kind of connect. Cosmic Lettuce, how about running your own server? That is something I've looked into, but I don't get there's a thing on Amazon called CloudFront, and it is a worldwide, it uses their Edge system, and I don't know more about it other than it allows you to, it will cache things around the world. If someone from Singapore starts to watch a video, it will cache it on servers in Singapore and leave it there for as long as people are watching. There's some kind of timeout where eventually it goes away, but as long as people are watching in Singapore, then that video will stay there and get cached. That has it makes it much more responsive, and it makes it the thing faster than if everything is sitting on my server in my office right here in Florida, and somebody in the UK wants to watch it, and then somebody in Singapore wants to watch it, and someone in California wants to watch it. Then that's not scalable. And Amazon will just put it on all servers around the world, and it's growing. I think the number of places where they're doing this kind of thing. It's not the same thing as setting up an EC2 instance, which I thought was interesting. They have these caching centers where all they do is cache content. So anyway, that's one reason why. However, if I do, it was Uncle Bill who said, why don't you go, who turned me on to this guy called, was it Exploring Damien or Damien Explorers on Twitch, who's doing all this remote streaming. And he's going from his LiveView backpack up to LiveView, which is putting it together from all of his modems. And then that RTMP stream is going to a server in his office. That I could set up, because what's going on there is from that server here in my office, that's going to Twitch. And I can set that up and operate it remotely. It took me a while to figure out what the workflow was on that. But now that I get it, it's actually a pretty cool idea. And that I can do without having to set up an Amazon instance to do that. I just have to buy the computer. And I'm thinking of buying one of those minis that has maybe an i5 processor on it or something like that, and setting it up that way. Damien Explorers, yeah, that was it. Thanks. And so, okay, Ken. Well, listen, this is not a plea for more money, but I did want to let you know how important what you currently are doing is, and so thank you for your support. Even if it's $1, it's plenty. Everything counts, as Cosmic pointed out earlier. So I want to add more to these to these streams. I want to give you more content. I want to give you more of what, of your money's worth, but I like to know why you're supporting. And I did a poll a while back, and I found out most people are just supporting what Deep Astronomy is doing because they want other people to enjoy it. And that's it. And that's the only reason they're doing it. When I was considering getting off of YouTube entirely, I got some pushback from Sylvain and a few others who said, don't do that because then you're going to get rid of your bigger audience. And while that may be true, the current audience that I'm gathering now, my current content that's sitting on YouTube now is doing plenty good for getting new people in. But like I see your point, and I will always post to YouTube, but it's not always great for me financially. Okay, so I have some questions here from Nick mostly, but let me pull them up because I had to do some homework from Nick. So I'm going to go with your third question that you posted a couple of weeks ago, Nick, where you said it was about question 3 on Titan. Now, why does it have a thick atmosphere, yet no moons have significant atmospheres? It's smaller and less massive compared to Mars, yet the atmosphere is not blown away by the solar wind. How would Titan look if it was closer to the sun, like the Earth? And that's a great question. But so I had to look it up. I knew that Titan had a thick atmosphere, but I didn't know why it had a thick atmosphere. And I also didn't know why similar-sized bodies like Ganymede and Europa and those kinds of moons, which are kind of the same size, why they didn't have one. And so, and it looks like, well, the easy answer, first of all, is that nobody really knows why Titan has such a thick atmosphere. So I didn't feel bad there. But the speculation is that the reason that Ganymede and the other similar-sized moons don't have one is that the temperature that's created near Jupiter is too high to support an atmosphere, and so it sort of blows it away and kept it from kept the moons of Jupiter from having one. Now, Titan is losing its atmosphere over time, and because I think all planets are losing their atmospheres, including the Earth, and certainly Mars is still losing its atmosphere as well. But your question of where would it be like if it were just a planet on its own is a really great question. And I did a Space Fan News on exomoons. Would they make a good place to harbor life? And in my opinion, I think that if Titan were its own planet on its own orbit around the sun, independent of being a moon, it would probably have much less of an atmosphere because the solar wind would definitely strip it away. It depends on where you put it, right? And so I think Titan as a world on its own would probably end up looking a lot like Mars eventually, although it's a lot smaller than Mars, so it wouldn't look all that great. But this is all speculation on my part. But it's a good question. People need to learn more about Titan, as well as these other moons of Jupiter, none of which have atmospheres. But it is argued that some of these superjupes, which I talked about in Space Fan News, could have an environment that nestles and protects these supermoons from having, with their magnetic fields and things, from too many other disastrous collisions in the solar system. So I don't know. It's an interesting thought experiment, but Titan may end up having some kind of organic compounds or life that we might be able to find on it. We just don't know yet, but we definitely should be looking. So that's that question. That was the one I was the least familiar with. The other one is on do I read science fiction? And if yes, then what authors and books are your favorites? Yes, I absolutely do. I just finished Artemis by, what's his last name was weird, but I forgot. Don't want to blank on his first name. Anyway, I just read Artemis, the same guy that wrote The Martian, and it was really good. It was a little short, and but I really liked the fact that there was a base on the moon. And I'm like you. I like science fiction that is more based in reality. So let me turn you on to James P. Hogan. And I grew up with him. and he wrote some books on time travel, and he even, hang on just a sec. He's been around since the 70s, and he wrote a series of books called the Giants Trilogy, where this alien civilization came and visited Earth, and it was just stupendously awesome. But he's all, not this book, but other books. Well, yeah, this book was pretty good as far as science goes. But he's written other books on time travel, which I really enjoyed as well. So that's one author. That's one of my favorites. Another, of course, is Isaac Asimov. I've been rereading. I just reread Foundation, all of them, and I also read The Gods Themselves, which was a good book about communicating between universes and sort of the folly of one universe is exploiting the other universe in order to keep itself alive, which was a great premise. So Isaac Asimov's another favorite. I read all the Herbert Dune books when I was younger, and I'm thinking about going back and redoing those. I'm going to tell you a tragic story. I had paperback books filling the shelves back from whenever since I was a kid, of all the science fiction books I've ever read. And I moved from Maryland when I moved from Maryland to here. This was back in 2013. I was in a throwaway mood, and I didn't want to move the stuff anymore. I had been moving it my whole life, and I gave them all to Goodwill. And then after I left the Space Telescope Science Institute, I had more time to read, and I wanted to reread some of those books. I had all the Larry Niven books, the Arthur Clarke books, all of them, and I had Frank Herbert books, and just all the James Hogan books, and I like fantasy too, so I had a lot of fantasy authors. I went to go try and buy some of those back at the bookstore, and just some of the one Frank Herbert book I wanted to buy, was this one. I wanted this book really bad because it was very, very good, and it was also very good science. It was about these building an artificial intelligence that was good enough to that could get them through the stars and things like that. Really good book. I paid $14 for this because it was a collector's item now, and then other books like this one with Arthur Clarke and other books that I've gotten, all of them ended up being like $15-20. I had hundreds of these books, and all of them now are very expensive to try and replace. So that's my Tony is a real idiot story. I wish I hadn't done that now because I don't have time to read them all anymore. I mean, I have time to read them now, and I want to, and so I can't. So let's see. Okay, so so yes, I do read science fiction, and that's my those are some of my favorite authors. A lot of the typical ones. The ones I don't like. I don't care for Robert Heinlein very much. Philip K. Dick I really like. Cosmic, someone else is enjoying them. You were practicing the 20/80 rule. Yes, I was, but boy, that hurt because I used to be a pack rat. I used to keep everything, and now and another thing I threw away, which I threw these away, was when you go to college and you get a degree, the only thing you've got left are your notes and your textbooks and what you kept in your head. And I had I was a good note taker, and I had just stacks of all the notes I had taken in all of my courses. And I thought to myself when I moved from Maryland, I thought, I'm never going to need these again. Why am I carrying them? What am I saving these for? And these were all of the courses I had taken at the University of Colorado in my physics degree. And like I said, I took good notes. And I also had recordings, little micro cassette recordings of some of my professor's lectures. Got rid of all of it. Well, guess where my son is going in next week? He starts at the University of Colorado, and guess what his degree is? He's taking a physics degree. And what classes is he taking? Pretty much all the ones I took. And it would have been a really great resource for him to have those notes. And so that's another thing I did. I threw them all away. So I don't know what the lesson there is. I carried them around with me for 30 years, and I finally tried to lighten the load, and then I did that, and that's what I get. Okay, so anyway, that's the science fiction question. I hope. What do you guys like, by the way? What are you guys reading? Because do you guys even have much of a chance to read? I remember Time Master by Robert L. Forward. A bit dry and weak as a story, but really hammered home to me that you can't have Faster Than Light without time travel. Yeah, that's a good Time Master. I'll have to look that one up. Do you guys read Kindle much? Do you guys do much with your, but after I got rid of all my paperbacks, I've been slowly, it's like when you upgrade from albums to cassette tapes to CDs, and then now everything's online. You end up rebuying it in all these different formats. Now I'm rebuying my books in Kindle form. And do you guys use your Kindle very much? Because I like a Kindle. The problem is I like a book more, because when you're holding a book, you can kind of remember where you were in the book, and you can go back and look stuff up. You can turn down pages from where you were. They smell really good, and that's something you just don't get from a Kindle. The reason I bring up this book, by the way, is this is one of my favorites, because here was the first time it's just a series of essays by James Hogan, and in this book, he has an essay on nuclear power called No Nukes, KNOWNUKES. And it was the first time I had ever read. Remember, I'm a product of the 80s, when nuclear war was a really big scary thing, and nuclear power was equally scary. This was the first time I had read a good essay on why nuclear power is good and why we need it. And so that's one of my favorite books I keep around. It has good essay in it. I only read Star Trek books. Oh, I had a lot of those too, but I thought they were really badly written. At least the ones in the 80s were. Maybe they got better, but they were, the ones I read were terrible. What about your Kindle? Do you use your Kindle much? Let me check out. Okay, so don't forget the Patreon channel too on Discord. Okay, I'm just rambling. God, I hope this is coherent, guys. Cosmic, you do a much better job keeping things going. Okay, let me go back to what I was. Okay, so Fred Hinson was asking a question based on the JWST deep space viewing capability. What would project the new size of the universe to expand to? And if I understand what you're asking correctly, Fred, JWST, you're asking about the Hubble constant, which is this number assigned to the rate of the expansion of the universe. And the expansion rate of the universe is probably right now it's changing over time, because the universe is accelerating as it gets larger. And I don't think JWST is going to have a whole lot to say about that. I tell you what is really moving this forward, and you probably saw the news in it last month, is Gaia. Gaia has measured, I think it was 80 Cepheid variables extremely precisely. And if you don't know what a Cepheid variable is, it's a standard candle. And if you don't know what a standard candle is, it's this idea that you know its intrinsic brightness, how bright it really, really is, if it based on its, no matter how far away it is. For example, if you take a candle, just a regular candle, and you burn it right here by your face. Don't burn your face, but you burn it right here, and you measure the brightness. That is more or less its intrinsic brightness. That's how bright it really is. That's how much flux is coming off of that candle. Now you take that candle and you move it to the other side of the room. What happens? It gets dimmer and it gets smaller. And the amount that it dims is proportional to the inverse square law. So if you know how bright something is right next to you, and then you measure that brightness from very, very far away, you can work out how far away it is very precisely. And Cepheid variables are one of those things. They're a star whose changes in brightness correspond to its intrinsic brightness. So when you measure its variability, its period is related to its brightness. And Gaia, which is a spacecraft that is designed to measure the positions of things very, very accurately, is up there right now, and it's measured some, I guess, like 80 Cepheid variables very accurately. And from that, they are able to refine the expansion rate of the universe, and they've done that. And I don't know if I have. I don't know if I have that up or not. Oh yeah, it's 73.5 kilometers per second per megaparsec is what Gaia found in the recent data release. But there's a problem now, and they know it to within 2% of that value. So they know it really well thanks to Gaia. But the Planck Space Telescope, also run by ESA, looked at the cosmic microwave background radiation very accurately, mapped it very precisely to within milli of a degree, I forget how much Kelvin, and they found, and I don't know how they do this, I think they use baryonic acoustic oscillations, but somehow you look at the cosmic microwave background, you can also get a value for the Hubble constant, and that value was less. Do I have that written down somewhere? 67 kilometers per second per megaparsec. So 73.5 for Gaia, 67 kilometers per parsec per second per megaparsec. That's a big difference. That's about 9%. And the uncertainty in those numbers is less than 2%. So something's wrong, and people are getting concerned. Why are they wrong? If we know these values to within certain values, why are we getting such different ones outside of our error bars? And it's a bit of a crisis because people are thinking, well, maybe there's something. Either it's the methods that are the problem, or there's something they just don't understand yet. And so it's a big controversy right now over what the deal is between those two values. And having said all that, JWST, as far as I know, isn't going to really do much in that arena. So, but it is going to be working in lots of other areas of science, primarily in the area of exoplanets and looking at the very first galaxies and stars. So, so that's my answer on JWST. And finally, Nick, you've got a related question on it as well. Let me get to that. Thinking of James Webb, of all the billions of dollars spent on it, the endless man years of work, I am worried that something may go wrong during the launch, like an explosion, incorrect orbit, inability to detach from second stage, like the military satellite didn't detach from Falcon 9 recently. That was also another Grumman problem. Their adapter didn't work. How does NASA make sure that JWST will be launched and deployed correctly, considering how precious and complex it is? Well, there's only so good they can get this. There's only so far they can take it. They have these things called confidence levels. And they are not just some number that they make up. They actually have quantifiable reasons for having these confidence levels. And they're trying to get JWST to a 70% confidence level. Now you may think, well, why only 70%? Well, it's because if you want, you can, first of all, you can never have 100% confidence level that everything is going to go perfectly. You can't have that. But the more confidence level you ask for and try to attain, the longer the mission's going to take. And this has already taken a long time, and we're not even at 70% yet. So they're trying to get to the 70% confidence level, meaning that they are able, that it will, or I guess 70% confidence it's going to work. But it's not just them kind of guessing. They have quantifiable numbers for it. And I talked to Scott Willoughby a couple of years ago at one of the AAS meetings we did a hangout on, and I asked him this. I said, how are you guys, what are you going to do if it doesn't open up? And I didn't talk about the rocket exploding. That's a different issue. But basically he said that they make every single nut, bolt, washer, hinge, substrate, electronic component has to be something called space hardened or space qualified. And they work these things, they work the hinges, they work the fasteners, they work all this stuff to the point of failure, but they also work, that's the individual hinge themselves, and then they will work it on the spacecraft to within a certain level. They don't want to break it and wear it out before they launch it. And that's the problem that we just had with JWST. They were working out those hinges, the folding and the unfolding of the sun shield, and had all these problems recently in California, and they realized that they needed to do more testing. So they're going to test it up to the point where they're 70% confident. How are they going to be sure the rocket doesn't explode? Well, it's the safety record of the Ariane 5, which is what they're going to be launching from French Guiana. And it's a pretty safe rocket. It's a huge rocket. The concern now is that the launch has been delayed so much that the Ariane 5, which is what they're building this thing to fit into, is going to be decommissioned before 2021. And now they're going to have the Ariane 6. And so now they're working with ESA, NASA is, to try and make sure they're still going to have the 5 available for launch for JWST. It's turning into a real cluster, I'll tell you that. It's a mess. So I wish I could give you some feel-good, warm fuzzies, but I'm as scared as you are. At this point, I don't think during that 2-week deployment and the 6 weeks commissioning and all of that stuff they're going to be doing when it launches, I don't think anybody's going to sleep. It's going to be really tense, and everybody's going to be holding their breath on the launch. So I wish I could be more confident than that, but unfortunately I'm not. I'm starting to get real pessimistic about JWST myself. So anyway, okay. So I'm now going to look at the comments that are in the post I made today, because Better and Better commented, and Nick Nolge, you also left another one on climate change. Do you often meet people who still think that climate change is not human-made and we shouldn't care to change anything? What do you say to them? Well, with people like that, I've taken the approach of, and I tried this with people who believe in a flat earth, and I didn't have very much success, but you have to start from where they are. Why don't you think? Why don't you think the climate is changing? And usually you end up with an answer like, well, NASA is telling us lies, NASA's hiding us information from us, and it comes down to a distrust of science and scientists and NASA. And this is something that's been concerning me a lot lately, and I've talked briefly with you about this in other Patreon posts. But it's another reason why I'm annoyed with Bill Nye, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Neil deGrasse Tyson. All of these people are engaging in something called scientism. And scientism is a very non-scientific way of describing the world. And it is a claim that ultimately all knowledge that humanity gains can be explained by science, no matter what. And that's where we're headed, and that's why they put so much faith in the science, and faith is the right word here, in the scientific method, that they eventually they say and they bleat that science will eventually explain everything. And they do it in a way that's very belligerent and very anti-theistic, anti-faith, anti-all kinds of things. And they're very smug about it. They're very angry about it. And they put people off, and they make people feel stupid. And I believe that is a huge source of the distrust that people have in science. Science has become very scary too. We're playing with genes. We might be able to design our own babies at some point, and we already can do abortions and play with stem cells and things that are quite frightening, and that perhaps it could be easily argued we shouldn't be doing that. And that's a good case for, should we morally do the things that science can do? And so, coupled with that, and the fact that the people who are practitioners of science are also quite belligerent toward the things that most people in the world hold dear, it causes them to, I think, fight back. And one of the ways they fight back is with this denial of climate change. They don't want to believe what scientists say because, they're assholes, for lack of a better word. And if you're going to be an asshole about it, then I'm not going to listen to you. And I really believe that science communication can be done better than just yelling at that God doesn't exist and that you're all a bunch of idiots for believing in God, and it's it's the wrong way to go about communicating science. All of us, me, Cosmic, Fraser Kane, Skylius, all of the people that you guys watch, we're all fighting for about the same 20,000 views. Okay? And there's not a lot of views out there to go around. And we're all fighting. We're not even fighting for the same one. We're just rotating the same views around. I want to get out of that bubble, and I want to talk to people who maybe don't trust science, but want to learn more. And if they can be taught, I would like to teach them. And that's what I think very strongly needs to happen. Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Richard Dawkins, all of whom are scientists or science educators or engineers at some level, are perfectly qualified to talk about science. They are not qualified to talk about the Bible. They don't have any idea about what theistic approaches and theistic knowledge has to show us. They're not qualified to talk about it, and yet they feel perfectly fine injecting themselves in a conversation about God. Richard Dawkins is an evolutionary biologist. He can talk about the role of life on Earth once it started with great authority, and I will listen to him. But if he starts talking about the role of the Catholic Church with Galileo, he immediately starts talking nonsense. He says things that are just plain out wrong. And they are, all of them, Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins in particular, want to propagate this idea that there is a war between science and religion, and there just isn't. And I would like to communicate that, and I would anywhere else but here. I'm sorry, the other way around. This is the only place I'll talk about it because I don't feel safe mentioning any of these ideas anywhere else. You guys, I feel like we have a rapport. I know you, you kind of know me, and we each know each other to a level where at least we have respect. And I would never say this on a YouTube live stream or any kind of platform that's outside of this little cocoon of the Patreon patrons. It's something I feel quite passionately about yet. So I know, and Sam, the people sending me was thanking for breaking their unreason bubble. I just think he's doing more harm than good. I'm sorry to say. I agree. He's got a lot of things to say to people that already believe, think like he does. Let me also say to you that I'll never say this in a YouTube live stream either, that I'm an atheist. I have been an atheist my entire life. I don't know how I can't make that jump from having quantifiable observations, repeatability, all of these things that science gives me about the universe, and then make this jump into a faith-based way of thinking. But I'm trying to understand it, and my wife, who is a theology professor and a philosopher, has gone a long way to help me understand this thinking. And I am convinced, first of all, that there is no war between science and religion. So, religion has been a incubator of science up until through Newton, and after Newton and the further successes of science that followed him, science pretty much stands on its own. But there was a period from the Greeks all the way up through Newton where science was basically propagated and advanced by the Catholic Church. And so I disagree that there's an inherent war going on between the two, other than what scientific people are trying to put forth. So I am saying this as someone who does not believe in God, but has a feeling that there's more to it than what I think there is. Science has a lot of its own limitations. Much of science is also based on things that are not scientific. And I'll give you just a brief example. Science relies on peer-reviewed journals to record and advance its knowledge base. A scientist will do research, and they will present their arguments, they will do their math, they will do their experiments, and they will outline their procedures, and they will publish a paper, which then goes to a journal. That journal then sends that work out to experts in the field, and they check it for accuracy. Is it right? Is the math correct? They also check it for, if it's being cited properly, is it being built on others' work? If it's being built on others' work, then are they being properly credited? And they check it for all kinds of things, and they say, yes, this is in fact a new contribution to our field, and this can be then published. It is a way of life of the scientist to do this for free. They don't charge for it. It's just part of being a scientist. You read journals that others or papers that others have written, and you offer changes, insights, and you do it for no other reason than you are advancing your field, and you are get to read a paper before anybody else sees it. Well, one thing that this peer review process is not good at is detecting fraud. So if you are willfully, now you can make an error in your paper, you can mess up, and if it's not caught, then it gets published anyway. Eventually that will get worked out. I mean, fraud will eventually, errors will eventually be found out. It may take a while, but it's built into the system that honest errors can be found out and corrected, but not against deliberate fraud. So the success of science is built on the honesty, the integrity, and the morality of the scientists doing the research. All of those are non-scientific qualities, and science depends on it absolutely. So to sit there and say that science is everything, and would be ultimately that doesn't need any other source of information from anybody else, is a real disservice to just about everything else in the world. Whether it's a loving relationship or history, for example, is not a scientific endeavor. It never will be, and yet we gain lots of knowledge from it. So it's not repeatable is one reason. You may ask, well, why not? Why isn't history science? You don't repeat it. It happened once. So it's not really science. I hope I'm not pissing you off. I'm saying things that are from the heart here, but I feel like this is becoming an issue, and it's directly related to your question, Nick, on climate change. Why are people denying it? Why do people think NASA did not go to the moon? Why are people thinking NASA would hide a Neptune-sized planet called Nibiru from the public? How could they even do that? There is an inherent distrust in a huge section of the population of not just America, but mostly Americans, but the rest of the world against science. And I believe that the root of that distrust is in the smugness and the meanness of some of the science communicators out there. And I feel very strongly about this. And I think that I'm right. I think that Bill Nye, when he goes off and debates Ken Ham, on the creationist bullshit, is doing a disservice. I think Ken Ham is also doing a disservice, but that's a different question. I'm only talking about the scientific people right now. Neil deGrasse Tyson feels like he can comment on the way in which the Bible has been interpreted over the centuries in light of new scientific knowledge. He's completely full of crap. And yet he feels like they just reinterpreted the Bible when new information came out. No, they did not. And, the myth of the Galileo trial, I have a whole thing on that, about how that has been blown out of proportion. Galileo was imprisoned, but he wasn't in a prison. He actually had quite the apartment that he kept himself in. He had servants, and he had waiters, servants' quarters, and he was hardly living the prison life. So and the Catholic Church really did not have a problem with his scientific theses that when he was promoting Copernicus. What they had a problem with was they wanted him to just stop saying that this is the absolute truth word of God. And if he would just stop saying that, then he could be right on publishing his work. And they were perfectly fine with it. They had no problem with the Copernican system at the time, even though it was wrong. And so but he was a bit belligerent, and he also was a pain in the ass, not just to the church, but to other colleagues that he had. He was also very free, or I should say, he was also very not very forthcoming with his giving credit where credit was due. He built a lot of work on Kepler and Tycho Brahe, and didn't really credit them with a lot of his work, with a lot of their stuff. So Galileo was no saint, although we bring him, that's not the right word, he was no hero. He did a lot of good work, he wrote a lot of good papers, but Galileo was not so persecuted as we were led to believe. So okay. So anyway, that's my whole thing about that. I hope that wasn't too angering. I don't know who Hugh Ross is. The church has done a lot of damage, after which they apologized. And I'm not saying the church is without fault here. And anybody who's been reading the news lately I'm not saying that the Catholic Church was everything great, but they were not the persecutors of science that they're made out to be. Nick Dolgy, the answer is because people are idiots, they have low intellect. It's not because of scientists. The distrust has been there long before Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris. Well, okay, yeah, you're right. I mean, of course it has been. That people have been distrustful, I think, since maybe Mary Shelley's time. It was the first time people, when they were, remember galvanism, and when people were poking dead bodies with electric current and they were twitching around, and people thought, oh my God, science is now trying to go into realms it shouldn't. I think that might have been the first I'd ever heard about the distrust of science. Certainly the scary part of science is out there. So that may be, as far back as I can remember, but science has been on the upward swing for an opinion ever since Francis Bacon time. So, okay, so let's see. Let me read some of your comments because I was so busy proselytizing there. Religion is retreating to God of the gaps. Yeah, I've heard that too. God of the gaps is this area where God sort of fills in where science can't explain. A good example is the area where relativity and quantum mechanics meet, or don't meet, is a gap that would be filled in by God. Another gap would be this Big Bang singularity, where if you trace time back all the way to the beginning, you get to a point in the universe where everything was in this singularity, and there is a point that you can go back to after which the laws of physics stop working. And so that's another gap. So you have to answer things like, where does the singularity come from, and things like that. So that's another gap. I don't think that's true. I mean, like I said, I am not a theistic person. I'm learning a lot about it from my wife, but I think it's more than that. I think that the universe, if you are a theist, okay, and I'm not saying this is my thing, but the way I understand it being articulated intelligently is that the universe, God is created the universe, and he is of the universe, but he didn't just create it and then just go take a vacation. He is actively involved in the creation itself, and is interwoven in it. And by doing science and discovering things about the universe, you're getting closer to God and what he is all about. And I'm not saying this in a very articulate way. My apologies. The vocabulary is very alien to me because I'm so used to talking about science. But it is, I think, more than just being a gap where God is convenient. It's more of a there just may be more that needs to be understood about these gaps. What is it? Complementary. What is it when the spooky action at a distance. I can't think of the word right now. Anyway, it's that quality is another one that might be a gap for the God of the Gaps thing. But it's just, I think we just need to understand more about the universe itself than we do. I'm going to stop talking about this because I'm just messing it up. Atheist is the only reasonable way to be. The natural way it's a natural way to be for a person with a brain. Well, we don't know what we're missing out on, do we? I mean, we can't say that. That is not a scientific statement. And it's the only reasonable way to be based on what? I mean, that's the kind of thing I don't like, because you can't just discount what the majority of human beings default into doing. We grow up, we are born thinking, well, of course there must be something greater than myself. Why does almost everybody do that? Okay? And so to just say it's the only reasonable way to be means that everybody else is not being reasonable. And I just can't say that. I can't believe that. So, sorry, in my opinion, these guys are Hollywood scientists now. This is one reason I'm glad there is a deep astronomy. Thank you so much, Ken. If I ever turn into an asshole, please let me know. I'm sorry. I think they're all assholes. And the other day, I watched Bill Maher, Real Time with Bill Maher on Fridays. And one time he had Richard Dawkins on. And I'm like, great, Richard Dawkins is on. And they had an interview and they talked about it. And they're all using the right vocabulary, all the words I like, evolution and science and reproducibility. And they're just talking about all this science stuff. And at the end of it, I'm really pissed off. And I don't know why. And I'm thinking, why am I so angry at them? And I'm angry at them because they were so smug. I realized they were just so smug. And I was like, they were only talking to people who wanted to listen to what they had to say. So what good are you doing? If you are just yelling in an echo chamber, are you really communicating to anybody? And as a science communicator that wants to educate, I feel like it's my responsibility to go outside that echo chamber. Stop calling people who believe in God idiots, and stop being an asshole, and just try and say, well, why does the shadow of the moon go from west to east during a solar eclipse? Why does it do that? And try and show them. I tried that. I failed, but I tried. And if you've got a flat earth, then what would a solar eclipse look like? And let's start with where they are. And let's just talk to them. Let's don't judge. Let's just discuss it. And they go, oh, that's interesting. If you think that, then wouldn't we also see, the following phenomena or whatever? You're going to reach a point where you're just going to piss them off and you're not going to get any further, but at least you might advance it a little bit more. And so I don't think it's a waste of time to try and talk to people who believe in God. In fact, I think it's my responsibility to understand where they are and try and communicate science from that standpoint and say, okay, well, I understand that you think NASA is defrauding you, and you think that it's hiding a planet the size of Neptune that's out there. Now, science would say, well, okay, if that planet really were there, we could detect it, even if they were hiding it, by looking at the things that they aren't hiding, like other planets in the solar system. We should be able to see it. And, in that case, what would, why don't we see that stuff? Engage them in that kind of rhetoric. But I'm also not naive, and I know that these people also have an agenda, and they're also angry, and they also just want to deny everything you say. So those people, it's not worth talking about. It's not worth, and creationists, it's the same way. Creationism is not the same as religious, God-fearing people, in my opinion. The creationists, they want to believe things that are not in evidence, and they're things that are not true, and that's something I would never advocate or even have patience for. So a creationist is not somebody I would try too hard with, nor would I with a flat earther, to the extent that they are just being belligerent. But if some people reach out to me, and they have, where they said, Tony, I really want to know about this. It seems to make sense. Why is the shadow of the moon? Why can't I make the shadow of the moon smaller than the Earth when I shine my flashlight on the wall or do whatever it is they do? And that kind of thing you can work with, right? You can explain that. You can talk to them about that. So, okay. Maybe these guys act that way because that's what the public seems to want. Well, yeah. There is that. We've gotten very tribal, haven't we? There are those of us who believe in science, who are very passionate about science and astronomy, that we want to share with anybody who will listen. But really, we only end up talking to other people like ourselves, and so we end up just having, it's an echo chamber. We just naturally build these echo chambers. So now we have the scientific, what they're calling the skeptics, the rational thinkers, the Sam Harrises, Richard Dawkins, etc., and that we're all talking amongst ourselves in this one. And then you've got the other guys, the Ken Hams, the creationists, the mega church preachers. They're all talking to their converted, and never do the twain shall meet. It's like the meeting of quantum mechanics and relativity. It's just not going to happen. So, well, I shouldn't say it's not going to happen, but it's like it's hard to make it understood. So, we've just devolved into that. Politics, it's the same way. I don't even want to get into that, but we just don't. We tend to isolate ourselves into people who only think like us. We only watch the same content. You guys have to admit, you're only watching the same crap on YouTube, right? You're watching me, you're watching Cosmic, you're watching Frasier, you're watching Skylius, you're watching all these people. And are you going out and are you looking at any of the other stuff? No, because, well, maybe you are. I'm just talking out my ass here, but we tend to do that. It's natural. And I'm not particularly inclined to watch Fox News, but I feel like I kind of have a responsibility to at least look at it once in a while to see what people who don't think like me are saying and what they're believing. And so I do that. Okay, would I volunteer to go to Mars or on a generation ship if you were given such an opportunity? Oh shit, it's way past an hour. I will talk about that, and then I better go and let you guys go because I know that Cosmic has to do his stream as well. Nick, I'm good. That's good. I'm glad you watch other people. I should do that more. I try to, but I don't always have time. I don't think I would actually. The more do you guys remember the Hangout series I did on Footsteps to Mars with Arnold Nicogossian? He wrote the book on space physiology and the problems with human beings in space. And I think that's a great filter. I think it is. I think our biology, unless we do what Ray Kurzweil says and turn ourselves into androids, put our personalities into a computer, I think space will kill us. And We may be able to build a generation ship that'll protect us long enough to get through space, but then once we get there, we're going to be so damaged by the journey that we may not be able to ever leave it again. So I think our biology is a huge limiting factor. I'm not so sure I would volunteer to go to Mars anymore. I would love to go into space. I would love to do what John Glenn did, what Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin did, spend a week or two in space and come back. I would love that. I would love to go to the moon and walk around and come home. But I would not want to go on a long rest of my life kind of relativity mission. So, Nick, if you don't like, I'll go ahead and show that. Why are you allowed atheist, Nick? Because it's cool it's fine if you are, but I need you to know that I don't agree with just shouting and being mean. There's plenty of people. I mean, I don't know I've never watched your channel. I probably should now. But if you are doing that kind of, where you're denigrating others' beliefs, and I understand where that comes from, especially where you're talking about creationists and climate change deniers and things like that. I can understand why you do that. If it makes you feel good, and if it makes your viewers feel good, there's a reason to do that too. But it does do damage, I think. I think that you are not going to heal any kind of divide anytime soon, nor do I think you're going to change anything by being loud. If you're trying to change someone else's opinion, that's not going to do it, in my opinion. That's not the way I would approach it. So, that's, okay, good. Well, Nick, I'm going to check it out because I want to see what you have to say. And do you live stream? So let me know. Okay, well, that's good. You try to promote reason, and that's very good. And my advice to you would be something that my wife gave me when I asked her, I said, how do I reach people who believe in a flat earth? And she told me this, and I would tell it to you. She said, you start from where they are, which means you have to, at some level, accept what they believe so that you can then discuss it. That they believe it truly, and that it matters to them every bit as much as your reason and your science matters to you, and your verifiability, your reductionism, all of that stuff matters deeply to you. So you need to understand that what they believe matters to them, and start there if you do want to communicate with others. So okay, so Cosmo, you see, you got a subber right there, and I'm going to go sub in just a bit too. I was born in Russia or USSR, and being an atheist, then it was breaking up. I thought I was a Christian. Yeah, that must have been an interesting path. I'd love to know your story. Are you in Russia now, or do you have you moved somewhere else? And then I realized it doesn't make any sense, and that only our fear of death and our being childish. Yeah, okay. It doesn't make a lot of. Like I said, I have trouble taking that step of accepting information based on faith. I can't. I'm not there yet. I can't do it. But I respect those that have made that step, and where their faith is incredibly important to them. I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm trying to plan this out. I got to go. There's a man named Dr. Ian Hutchison. He's a physicist at MIT. He wrote a great book called Monopolizing Knowledge, and it's all about scientism. I've read it 3-4 times, and I called him the other day, and I asked him if he would be willing to talk with me about scientism on my channel. He hasn't agreed yet. We talked on the phone, and he goes, he had to talk to me first to find out where I was coming from. He didn't want to just get into some shouting match with an atheist who wanted to, get in his grill. And so I assured him that wasn't happening, but I'm working on it. I'm hoping I can get him, and we won't do it live, but we'll probably record it. And I respect his opinion because he's a plasma physicist from MIT, and he knows all about the science and the scientific arguments for the universe, the great landscape of Leonard Susskind, and he also knows, what Stephen Hawking has done to get rid of the singularity of the Big Bang and all kinds of other things. And so I'm hoping to get him in a conversation soon, and we're going to talk again next week. Okay. So Sean Carroll is also really good. Sean M. Carroll is also another one that's a biologist, I think. Yes, Carroll is really good. He's also got his own podcast too. I think it's Preposterous Universe. So check it out. It's really good. I've been following him for a long time. Okay, guys, I better go. Cosmic, good luck on your daily your live stream. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for coming in. Thank you also for your support on Patreon. I know I say it every time, but I really need your support, and thank you for it. And I hope I didn't piss you off with some of the things I said. I was being honest with you. And I've said things out loud that I haven't really ever said to anybody but my wife. So be gentle with me, okay? All right, guys, I'm going to go. Thanks again, and we will meet up again next month. I guess doing this once a month is about what we're after. Nick, I'm going to check out your channel. Thanks for letting me know about it. I'm going to also help promote it by putting it on my channel and send people your way. Hopefully, we'll see. I mean, I really want all of us to sort of help each other out. Like Uncle Bill says they do on Twitch, we can do it here on YouTube as well. So see you guys around. I'll see you on the Patreon. I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully in my Hangout, and I will see you on Discord and all the other places. So thank you guys so much. And until next time, keep looking up.